Hello, this is Reading with Steven, here with the next episode of Bookshelf A to Z, a video series where I read all of the books that I have in order from by author's last name from A to Z. Although, not these books, those are nonfiction. We're only reading the fiction ones. But anyway, today's book is Call Me By Your Name by André Aciman. That is how you pronounce his name, I hope. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and that's what it looked like it sounded, but I don't speak the phonetic alphabet, so I'm only basing it off of what I'm pretty sure is accurate. So when I originally wrote this script, I was going to talk about, yes, there is a script, but I was going to talk about sex and gender and the performativity of both of those things and how Elio and Oliver perform gender and their sexuality in the 1980s. Because, well, I suppose I should specify this is a gay romance novel, a very famous gay romance novel with a movie, a good movie that stars Timothée Chalamet and somebody else whose name I don't remember. He's the one that ate people. Or, well, people said he ate people, but the real problem was that he was, he was doing not nice things to women. Uh, but I don't think the fact that this is a gay novel. I should go this way, not the other way. The fact that this is a gay novel, a gay romance novel, while important, is not the point of the book. I don't think it really matters that they're gay. Because I don't think that's what this book is about. It's not about them, discovering that they're gay, I guess. Although I'm sure that is part of it. I will say that I would like to acknowledge the importance of it being a queer romance. Because, it is important, representation and all that. I do think that is important. And I do think it matters that a book like this and a movie that was made off of it, that was nominated for an Oscar, I think that's very important, It's just that it's not... it's important to the reader, and it might be important to the person who watches it, but I don't think it's important to the understanding of the actual story. Well, the actual novel, I guess. The story, it is the plot, but it's not important to our understanding of the novel, and that's the point, and that's what I want to get across. I think that the gayness is just incidental, in much the same way that I think the romance is actually incidental to the novel too. But I'll explain it in a minute. All right. So as for the plot of the book, yes, we are going to plot spoil. Although the book came out, almost 20 years ago. This book came out in like 2008. So it's been a while. 20-year-old book. 2007. It's 18 years old. It can vote. I think we know which way it voted too. So the novel follows a 17-year-old boy named Elio, who lives on the Mediterranean coast of Italy with his parents, and every summer they invite a summer scholar, I guess you could call it. I don't know that they ever specify what he is, but it's a graduate student. They invite a graduate student to come live with them for the summer, and they say translate the stuff they're working on, but I don't really see the purpose of that from an academic point of view. But who am I to complain? It's a free summer in Italy, and I think that's the point. So they invite an American man named Oliver. He comes. Elio and Oliver, they fall in love together. They get together for a little while. The summer ends. Oliver leaves. Elio is very sad. And then, and that's the plot of the movie too. And then this part was excised from the movie. But afterwards, it spends 60 pages on Elio musing about his life and all of that. And that is the important part. That is the part that I want to talk about. That is where the meat of the novel is. The rest of it is fun. Steamy, if you're into that. There's the famous peach scene, which is... I think you have to be in the right frame of mind to enjoy that part. I was not in the right frame of mind, but I was in the right frame of mind during the movie. So I think it's all about the right frame of mind. And that's as disgusting as we're going to get with that one. But that musing at the end, the musing that I talked about, that is the important part. That is what I want to talk about in this video, and that is what we're going to talk about. Armie Hammer. That's what his name was. The man in the film version of Call Me By Your Name who did the Not Nice Things. His name is Armie Hammer. I looked it up. That's the kind of thing you can expect from this channel. Looking up basic facts and names. You don't get that everywhere. Some people just make things up. Not me. So in the novel The Bell Jar, which I don't have convenient. In the novel The Bell Jar, which is a book by Sylvia Plath, which we will get to, I'm thinking 7 years from now at the rate I'm going. Roughly 7 years. Maybe 8. Possibly 6 if I'm really good, but I don't think I am, so we're going to go with 7. The novel is about Esther, who is horrendously depressed. But what I want to talk about is the famous passage where Esther describes what her depression feels like. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was E.G., the amazing editor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions, and another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion, and beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest, and as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and one by one, they popped to the ground at my feet. Now, why do I bring this up? Why do I talk about the fig tree from The Bell Jar when I am reading a gay romance novel, other than the obvious depression that I imagine is rampant in both fandoms? The reason is because of part 3 of this novel, the San Clemente Syndrome. San Clemente Syndrome, can you read that? Yes, I hope so. Now, the San Clemente Syndrome is described in the novel by a poet who is unnamed, not important, but he describes a feeling which Elio then echoes throughout the rest of the novel, and it is described as such. This was the sum of everything I'd been in my life, and more. Who I am when I sing and stir-fry vegetables for my family and friends on Sunday afternoons. Who I am when I wake up on freezing nights and want nothing more than to throw on a sweater, rush to my desk and write about the person I know no one knows I am. Who I am when I crave to be naked with another naked body, or when I crave to be alone in the world. Who I am when every part of me seems miles and centuries apart, and each swears it bears my name. The analogy continues, and he describes the feeling as similar to the Basilica of San Clemente, hence the name, which is a church in Rome that is built on an older church, which is built on top of a pagan temple, which is built on top of another pagan temple. And the point is that all of these buildings, ancient, seemingly inconsistent with each other, all of them are combined together into this one building. And this one building is, because it's built on top of all of them, really just an amalgamation. It's one version. Eventually there will be another San Clemente and then another one after that, all of which are one building made up of many previous versions of themselves. Hence the figs. The figs are one person doing many possibilities. Now, obviously, Sylvia Plath, being Sylvia Plath, takes the most depressing view of this. Her view is that every version of yourself dies and goes away. And that is certainly one interpretation of it. Another interpretation, I think, is to be found here. It's not that they die. They don't cease to exist. Or if they do, it's only to be reborn again into another tree, into another fig, into another version of the Basilica of San Clemente. The San Clemente syndrome, like the fig tree analogy, is asking the question, who are we? And, as the good book says, we are legion. We are more than just one person. We are who we are when we're around our friends. Just as much as we are when we are alone by ourselves, just as much as we are when we're with our parents, just as much as we're with strangers, just as we are when we're in public, just as we are when we're on a stage. We are all of these things, and yet each of them is only a facet of ourselves. Now, obviously, Sylvia Plath takes a very negative view of this. She is of the opinion that each version of ourselves must die to create a new version, and I guess. But Call Me By Your Name takes a much more charitable view. It's not that they die, per se. They always exist within our memories. It's just that they have to pass us by so that new versions of ourselves can keep constantly coming up. This process, this idea that we are multiple people is expressed by Elio some 10 years after the summer of love, if you will, in the novel, when Oliver first invites Elio to stay with him, and Elio thinks about the possibilities of what might have been, in the same way Esther was considering the figs. And he says, quote, "I wonder now who that someone else is today. Is he happier? Couldn't I dip into his life for a few hours, a few days, and see for myself, not just to test if this other life is better, or to measure how our lives couldn't be further apart because of Oliver, but also to consider what I would say to this other me were I to pay him a short visit one day? Would I like him? Would he like me? Would either be surprised to learn that each of us had in fact run into an Oliver of one sort or another, man or woman, and that we were very possibly, regardless of who came to stay with us that summer, one and the same person still?" I lied, by the way. We are definitely going to talk about gender and sex and performativity. I don't know why you thought that we wouldn't be. That whole last section was about the performative nature of the self, and what could be more performative than our gender. I don't know why I whispered that. Anyway, we're going to talk about Judith Butler. Judith Butler, for those who don't know, is probably one of the most important feminist and queer theorists of the 20th and 21st century. She is still alive. I was pleased to find that out. Not because I just assume that academics are always dead when I read them. I don't know why that is, but I was happy to find out that I was wrong, that she's not dead. It's the small victories in life. It's the small things. Anyway, Judith Butler, whose most famous work, I have to read this out, is titled The Performative Acts and Gender Constitution, an Essay in Phenomenology and Feminist Theory, That's a mouthful. Well, in it, she posits, quote, gender is in no way a stable identity or locus of agency from which various acts proceed. Rather, it is an identity tenuously constituted in time, an identity instituted through a stylized repetition of acts. Further, gender is instituted through the stylization of the body, and hence must be understood as the mundane way in which bodily gestures, movements, and enactments of various kinds constitute the illusion of an abiding gendered self. Now, I know what she's saying there, but in case people don't know, let me sum it up. She is saying gender is bullshit, which we enact in order to torture ourselves. Now, admittedly, I did add the torture ourselves part on my own. But the fact of the matter is, she's saying that gender is bullshit. It is something that we have created in order to affirm our identities as we understand them based on what we think we should be doing. So we think that a man should act a certain way and a woman should act a certain way. And therefore, we, in assuming the role of a man or a woman, act that way. Convenient, confusing, but convenient. So obviously we've talked about the performativity of the characters in a general sense. Their ideas that they are multiple people within themselves and that they are different people in different circumstances. We've got that. But does this relate specifically to gender? I hear you asking myself. And yes, it does. Throughout the novel, we see Elio, and only Elio, because it is from his perspective. We never see Oliver's perspective. But we see Elio take on the role, a more masculine role and a more feminine role at various times. Elio, obviously being a young boy, always tries to, when in public, always seems to try to give off the more masculine vibes, a more caretakery vibe. And we see this when he tries to purchase a book, both for Oliver and then a little later for Marcia, a local girl that he is also seeing. Quote, the bookseller had ordered 2 copies of Stendhal's Aramance, one a paperback edition and the other an expensive hardbound. An impulse made me say I'd take both and to put them on my father's bill. I then asked his assistant for a pen, opened up the hardbound edition and wrote, Zwischen immer und nie, for you in silence, somewhere in Italy in the mid-80s. He, Oliver, said something about the gift being the best thing he'd received all year. I shrugged my shoulders to make light of the perfunctory gift. Now, I think it's worth noting 2 things. 1, he gives the more expensive version to Oliver. And 2, he, despite Oliver being pleased with the gift, he acts as if it's nothing. It's no big deal. Which, very masculine. Because you're not supposed to act like it's a big deal. This is not Judith Butler. This is just, base level understanding of my own sex and gender. The second instance, however, we see he is with Marcia. Now, Marcia, obviously, is a girl. She's going to take on the more feminine role a lot easier than Oliver would. Or at least we would expect her to. And, again, Elio is going to take on the more masculine caretaker role. I decided to buy Marcia a copy as well, and begged him to inscribe it for her, which he did, adding an endless doodle next to his name. I don't think this is for you either, Signorina, but... Then, once again, I asked the bookseller to put both books on my father's bill. As we stood by the cashier, watching the bookseller take forever to wrap each copy in glossy yellow paper, to which he added a ribbon, and on the ribbon the store's silver seal sticker, I sidled up to her and, maybe because she simply stood there so close to me, kissed her behind the ear. Outside, she couldn't help herself. Why did you buy me this book? For a moment I thought she was going to ask me why I'd kissed her. Perché mi andava? Because I felt like it. Yes, but why did you buy it for me? Why buy me a book? Here we can see Marcia questioning. It's worth noting she's not questioning, obviously, the gender roles at play. She's not questioning why a boy would buy her a book. She's questioning why Elio specifically would, because she sees that Elio is playing the role of a man in their relationship. She's seeing that he is taking on that caretaker role, and she's questioning, did he mean to do that intentionally? Is his intentions that he is trying to take care of her and therefore showing interest in her, or was it just an unthinking act of kindness? And it's obviously the first one, to which she also plays her role diligently, and she enacts her own idea of femininity after that by, at her instigation, having sex with Elio, because that's what, in her understanding of femininity, is what she's supposed to do. A boy is nice to you, you have sex with him. Now, that might be problematic, and I'm not advocating for it, and that is an entirely different discussion, and something I have no doubt Judith Butler has talked about, maybe not in this instance, but those are the gender roles at play in this scene. And that's how we should understand it. That these two young people are playing the roles that they understand that they are supposed to play, that they think they should play, that they believe that society has them play, and they play it to a T. Now later on, however, a little later on, when Elio is then with Oliver, we see that though in public he was playing the role of masculinity, in private with Oliver alone, instead of being masculine, he takes on the more feminine role. When they are going to have sex for the first time, Elio says, "I had worried about how I'd go about undressing. How if he wasn't going to help, I'd do what so many girls did in the movies. Take off my shirt, drop my pants, and just stand there stark naked, arms hanging down, meaning, this is who I am. This is how I'm made. Here, take me. I'm yours." Now, I think it's really important to note that he compares himself, well, obviously he compares himself to a girl, but he compares himself to a girl in the movies. Now, at this point in the novel, he's done the deed with Martha, so he knows what a girl would act like in a role, and Martha, to her credit, takes a more active role in the relationship, whereas Elio, in play acting not the role of the women he knows, but of the woman in a movie, of the woman that culture dictates is what a woman should be, it is a passive participant. He is the passive recipient of sex and not an active participant in it. And I think that is very important in understanding Elio's idea of gender and gender performativity. Because again, they are only performing the gender as they understand society expects them to do. We are, in Judith Butler's idea, performing merely as though we were a mirror image of what society expects us. And this is what Elio is doing in the bookshop and alone in private. And that I think is fascinating. That I think is what's interesting about this novel. And it's why I think it's worth reading. It is worth reading, but all books are worth reading to a certain extent. Not your lane. Probably not your lane. I'm never going to stop talking about that book. It's the first book in the series. Well, in the Bookshelf A to Z series. I don't think it was a series. But I'm never going to get over it. Because that book was terrible. But interesting. But terrible. This is just a good book. This is like the Chinua Achebe novels. This is just a good book. It's interesting. And there we have it. Another book in our lengthy and arduous journey through my bookshelves. Done. We're done with it. It's a fascinating book. Highly worth the read. Worth watching the movie too, but this isn't a movie channel, so I can't really speak on that with any authority whatsoever. Although, arguably can't speak on books with authority either, but I still do that. Hubris, pure hubris. But if you're sitting there thinking, worried, well, maybe worried is overstating the fact, but if you're thinking about, well, what does this mean? If even our genders aren't real, if even that is performative, if we ourselves are just a mere reflection of what is expected of us, if perhaps we are the figs dying on the vine, what do we do about that? Well, I have good news, or bad news, depending on how you view that. And it is that our next book, which is over here, will answer that. Now, you might be thinking, no, it won't. You're right, it won't, but it gives us a framework to understand it, and that's what we're going to talk about, which is existentialism. Won't that be fun? Maybe. I don't know. Either way, hope you enjoyed the video. This is Reading with Steven. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment. Talk about your experience with performing gender. I'm not going to include that. But do leave a like and a comment, because it's fun. I like talking about books, and I would like people to talk about books with me.